from.
I saw his fella on
Yeah.
cycling.
Oh my goodness! I know. I called him up. I'm like, first of all, where do you find the time?
I know. Go do
Yeah.
your day job.
Exactly. Leave us alone, man. What the hell's wrong with you?
When there was a time.
Order this meeting on July 24th, 2019 of the Public Safety Committee. We get roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka,
Here.
Alderman Kramer,
Present.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Here.
and Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
Thank you very much. Everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda. Are there any amendments or changes? Hearing none, the agenda will stand as submitted. There are no announcements, appointments, proclamations, or recognitions. There is not a city administrator's report.
No report.
Okay. There are, the next item, number 5, are the reports of the chair and alderman. The chairman has no report. Alderman Kramer?
No report.
No report. Alderman Lockmiller?
No report.
Alderman Sims. Thank you. Department reports. Chief Speaks.
During the last couple weeks or so, we've had a normal run of weekends. These things are happening frequently.
Thank you.
We got it.
Now for my next number.
The car break-ins over the last couple of weeks that we've experienced, and really these are car go-throughs. They're not really break-ins. They're not breaking into vehicles at this point. They're looking for unlocked vehicles, as we know. One of them happened at the Jury Inn.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Okay.
Yep.
One of them happened at the Jury Inn, as it ends up that was cleaned up by our detective bureau, and the guy was caught in East St. Louis. And after his interview, he had just been released from the penitentiary for armed robbery, and he'd come to the jury and broke in a couple cars and took property out of it. Made a full written confession, so he will be headed back. He will be headed back from the jury to where he came. But we have had a series of car break-ins. This is the first time since I've been here that we're right around that Manchester corridor. They typically are on the north side of town. We have probably 3 or 4 incidents that have happened down around the Manchester corridor. So we have switched and kind of included that in the detail areas that we're looking at. So quick update on the trailer, the messaging trailer. This has taken, obviously there's a learning curve to learning how to put the messaging in. We had to slow down because we needed a SIM card to connect to the internet to do the license plate reading process. That took a little while. That's now completed and done. Sergeant Gibson's doing the training of our officers in terms of the deployment and the use of the messaging trailer, and we're hoping in the next week or 2 that it will be up and running. So, and then we'll deploy it in different areas as our crime analysis dictates in terms of the activity of where the car break-ins are. We also, we've been talking with the SLAPCA, which is the area police chiefs, and there is some really, I would call it groundswell amongst the chiefs. We are all aware of the issues that are going throughout the St. Louis community with these break-ins. And there are contributing factors that we all know. Our gun laws are one of them. One of the primary ones is the police departments are not able to chase cars at this point, and all the bad guys know it. That's one of the issues that the area police chiefs are really discussing in terms of should there be some consideration for nighttime pursuits. It's extremely dangerous. There's a lot of moving parts to considering it. Nothing is on the horizon in terms of lifting the pursuit qualifications for officers, which is use or threatened use of deadly force, which is what we need in order to justify a pursuit. The theory behind this is that these guys are so dangerous, do they present a deadly threat just by being in your neighborhood? And my personal answer is yes, but that also is qualified by the fact that I know how dangerous these pursuits can be. So it's going to take a lot of forethought and a lot of involvement from you as elected officials and BOLA as the city administrator to really think our way through that if we ever get to the point where we decide that it may be necessary to do that. I can tell you that it is a very big piece of this puzzle. These guys know that we cannot chase them, and they run each time. They actually hit my neighborhood in Eureka Saturday night. They actually went through my cars. 4 guys, 4 black males, all in a stolen car. The county police and Eureka Police Department jumped them 120 miles an hour, and they came eastbound on Highway 40, 64. So this is just, it's every time. The car is free bumblebee, but so we continue, all of us from, and I know all of you have heard me say this, from O'Fallon, Illinois to O'Fallon, Missouri, we're dealing with this. O'Fallon, Missouri has lifted the nighttime pursuit restriction from their officers. That's how badly they're being hit. Sunset Hills has done the same thing. So again, to me, this is something that we have to look at from a regional perspective as opposed to an individual city perspective, and whether or not we're going to do something different. So, but we continue to do details here in Brentwood. Our officers in the last couple of weeks have jumped a couple cars that have run, and that continues to be the pattern. So we continue to get doorbell and ring videos from not only Brentwood but Ladue and all these different areas, and they continue to really scare everybody. There's one from Ladue I just showed Terry from last week, where the guys going into the driveway have gun up, finger on a trigger, pointed directly at the door of the house they're going to. That's what we're dealing with here. And the one that they did at my house Saturday night, there were 3 guys, 2 breaking in cars, 1 in a vehicle coming down my street. 20 seconds later, the 4th guy comes with his back turned, backing up down the street, and he's the rear guard. This is what these guys are doing. They're little paramilitary groups. Obviously, they're extremely violent. Ronnie, did you know this was going on in our neighborhood? So anyway, this is priority number 1 for all law enforcement throughout St. Louis. Angie Hawkins, as you know, is down at the FBI Academy right now, and I asked Angie for the last few days, ask all the area, the people that are down there with you from all over the United States, are they dealing with this same issue? And the answer was no, they aren't. So these are communities represented throughout the United States, and none of them are dealing with what we have in St. Louis. So it's kind of I think is kind of a unique problem that our bad guys have changed to. So, and quite frankly, our proximity to the city of St. Louis and the highway is really hurting us in Brentwood. So that's where we are in that regard. It's something that we train our police officers for. We have training tonight for an officer safety training tonight. This will be one of the scenarios. We will pitch them into a group of car clotters. Again, we've been doing that. So extremely dangerous for our police officers in Brentwood. Extremely dangerous if they dunce into these guys. Other than that, that's really all I had, sir.
I had a couple of questions for you, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the committee. It's my understanding that we're going to be facing a little bit additional turnover. Is that true?
That's true, yes.
So is that due to retirement, transfer?
So we already know that Elmer's leaving after 40 years in law enforcement. They're having a little celebration for him next Wednesday at 10:30. We are. Bolo authorized it. So at 10:30, Elmer's leaving next week. The 31st will be his last day. Craig Eisenbeis is about to get an offer from WashU, I think. He's trying to get on WashU Police Department. So Craig will be retiring. He's got, I think, 29 years service. And then we have another officer that has a federal agency that's close to hiring him. So the FBI is probably going to take one of our folks. So we're going to be back down 3 people here shortly.
So the 3 you just brought on, obviously. So what does that do to your coverage in the immediate future? I mean, what's the timeline typically, or what was the timeline for the last 3?
It took about 4 months, roughly, by the time we recruit. I mean, obviously we're trying. All of law enforcement has a real challenge recruiting minorities, and we're trying hard to do that, but that takes time. We have to go to colleges, we have to go to academies and things like that. We came up with a list within about 2 months, and then the process starts. Testing, and then interviews, and the whole thing takes at least 4 months to get done. So, and you asked a question about, or you posed a question about nighttime chasing, saying that that's something that elected officials are going to have to deal with. Is that, so what's the process for changing that on a city basis, or is that something that has to be done? Okay.
I serve on the St. Louis Area Insurance Trust, and the recommendation to have member communities adopt a policy in regards to pursuit was done in an effort to manage risk. We have had municipal departments who have made the decision to engage in these high-speed pursuits, and being on the board, I have had the opportunity to view these videos because some of these municipal departments have videos in their vehicles. And the one that I did observe when they did make contact with the innocent driver who happened to be caught up in this chase, the individual they were chasing was going in excess of 100 miles an hour in a dense area, in a residential area. And this innocent person coming off from work got hit, didn't wake up until several weeks later, didn't know what had hit him, and could never go back to work. And the liability, one of our most expensive costs that we're seeing from municipal departments have to do with police liability. And what we're trying to do is managing that. So we have established criteria from which each municipal department will either allow or not allow pursuits. And one of the conditions for membership is that we not engage in police pursuits. And in doing so, then you risk your municipality having to go out and obtain your individual coverage for police liability. So that our police department has fallen into compliance with that. Fortunately also, Chief Spees is the, what would I call you, of ECDC Operational Committee. You're the chair.
They forced it upon me.
They forced it upon you. So
You missed the wrong meeting.
I was the new guy.
Right.
So he's the chair, and he definitely can try to make a case for that. But as a board member, when we go through renewals, I see the premiums going up. So those are some of the considerations. I mean, obviously, this committee and the board could say we no longer want to be part of Slate. We want to go out on our own, and then we'll have to absorb the cost there. And the value of being in Slate is the many lives that are collectively being, we're getting reinsurance for. So, so right now we have a prohibition disallowing limitation of high-speed pursuits, and we list the criteria for traffic violations. We also have a prohibition disallowing initiative of high-speed pursuits for misdemeanor violations. And these are all policy statements. We discourage initiation of high-speed pursuits where the driver is only suspected of driving while intoxicated. And there's a list I can go on. There is an exception to the above is when there is a present danger to human life or the likelihood of serious injury if the suspect is not pursued. The members shall provide a copy of their police pursuit policy, which we have, and we were given 60 days to do so. So this is something that is reviewed annually by the Slate Board, which I am on the board.
So, so you're telling me that currently Slate's made a decision collectively to condition membership on adhering to these protocols? And these protocols are, what, voted on annually, or?
By the board.
Right, by the Slate Board. All right. How often do we actually reevaluate the cost effectiveness of being a member of Slate? In other words, every once in a while we go out and on other matters, in terms of, renewing contracts for various things, we test the waters and say, let's see if we can find a better deal. Do we follow that process with regard to
We have
Slate?
not done that for Slate because a decision was made. So I think Slate has been in existence for 30-plus years.
That's about right.
I'm not sure exactly when the city of Brentwood joined. I don't know whether we were a founding member or not. But I'm not aware, and I haven't done it since I've been here, to go out and test the waters. We have also this is a strong word, but kicked out is strong, but we have encouraged certain municipalities when the cost of their premium renewal became too high, asked them to go seek liability coverage elsewhere.
So where would the impetus come from to do a review like that? Would it come from you, or would it come from the elected board?
It could come from the elected body.
In other words, we could debate a resolution and perhaps pass a resolution asking staff to evaluate the slate relationship and come up with alternatives and talk about that? Is that something we could do?
Right.
Sir, if I could weigh in on that.
Yeah, you're on.
In Bowles, you're 100% right. The slate issue, and it started out of a particular north side municipality, police department that chases for everything, and really it was the focal point of that. That's why when I talked about this, I was really specific to a nighttime approach to people that are they, by their presence in our neighborhoods, just in and of itself. We know they're armed. We know what they're doing. Is that threat piece that would reach to the level of justification of a pursuit? I can tell you from my perspective as chief here, I do not want to enter into any change of a pursuit policy unless this is done with our neighboring communities. For several reasons, but the primary reason is that, as you can imagine, chasing these guys is one thing. Catching them is a whole nother ballgame.
Right.
Because you have now trapped probably 3 to 4 guys who are very violent, all armed, who don't want to go to jail for anything in their lives and hate the police. You are going to have a violent confrontation almost assuredly when you catch them. So if Brentwood would lift their pursuit policy like a couple of other cities have, and there's not support and help when that termination occurs, our officers will be there by themselves. That's not acceptable.
Do you have any opportunities to have those kinds of conversations?
I spoke to the Hazelwood chief today, as a matter of fact, about this issue, and again, it's SLAPCA is the area police chiefs organization. And what I told Greg was, I think it's worth a conversation, but we need to do this because we can all come to you as the elected officials and city administrators and say, look, here's what we're facing in our communities, right, and you need to be with us. Because quite frankly, if this is a law enforcement change, we'll get roundly criticized when that accident happens that Bo was talking about. This has to be a decision collectively made by people that say, hey, we're not going to Monday morning quarterback your decisions. Yes, we try and do them as safely as possible. Yes, we understand the risk. And yes, we know there will be bad things happen, police shootings, accidents, things like that. Does that risk outweigh the fact that these people are pointing guns at our citizens on a nightly basis while they're breaking in cars? Right. That's the question. And it's not Brentwood, that's everywhere.
Can you remind me, there was an accident, I don't know how long ago it was, but it was on McKnight Road where a car ran into a backyard near Cricket. When it crested the hill, the estimate was that it was exceeding 100 miles an hour. Right. Was that car being pursued, or was that car just driving fast to drive fast? No,
it had been jumped by the Rock Hill and Brentwood police officers getting a call for a tampering of progress. And Alderman, when we get near these guys, if they're in that car, that's what they do, and they will reach extremely dangerous speeds very quickly because they all know our pursuit policy, and they're getting to those speeds knowing we will back off and let them go. And again, if all of the area slate involved police departments said between midnight and 6 a.m. we could do this as a team. Is it safe? No. However, we could pass cars off to neighboring jurisdictions. Hey, this car's north on McKnight's probably gonna go east on 40, so Clayton and Richmond Heights can pick them up. I call that team policing. That's the only way to do this, and it's not safe. Again, it really boils down to how much the St. Louis community, all of us, from Eureka to O'Fallon to Brentwood, can stomach this. And sooner or later, they've killed people in the city of St. Louis. They've shot a lot of people in the city. Right. Because these guys are carjackers along with car breaker inners. That's what they do. You can imagine what's going to happen if a Brentwood or Ladue or Richmond Heights resident gets shot coming out to confront these guys. Right. That's why we keep preaching to all of you so that you understand that I hate police recruitment. I'll be the first one to tell you. I've been in enough of them. They are extremely dangerous, and I don't want our Brentwood officers chasing guys 100 miles an hour. Just don't. But there comes a point where all of us, because of our responsibilities to people we're supposed to be protecting, have to say, when does this outweigh? Can we do this safely? Can we do it better? And does it outweigh the risk these guys pose in your driveways with a gun pointed at you?
The only way you're thinking that that would be something that you'd be in favor of would be if it was done collectively.
Yes, sir. It would have to be, for insurance reasons, for safety reasons when that car is caught,
Sure.
and for the ability to be able to pursue a vehicle without being on its bumper.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Chief, how does St. Anne get away with it? Because they seem to chase anything and everything.
So there's two reasons for that. One, Missouri state law is very clear on this. It's a felony to run from a police officer who's got their lights and siren on. You are committing a felony as a driver if you try to elude an officer. That's what they're leaning on. So just by the mere fact that you run from a policeman, you're committing a felony. Another piece of this, and again, if this was something that eventually, as this keeps happening, the St. Louis County prosecutors have to be involved in this process, because that prosecution hasn't been something that's been prioritized. So if you run in a vehicle, will they even issue a warrant on the driver for felony fleeing? That's questionable. Is there any bite to the bark? Are these guys actually going to jail? Because until they start hitting a jail cell for felony fleeing, it will not get any better. This is, to answer your question though, Alderman, St. Anne's relying on the Missouri state law that allows law enforcement to chase a car that runs from them based on that felony.
And that gives them liability protection?
Well,
that gives them liability protection?
State law.
the state law of the felony fleeing.
Chasing somebody who's now a felon or alleged felon.
So if there's an accident,
I can tell you they all sue. You're going to get sued.
Yeah, we're just trying to limit. It says on here.
Just yell.
It says that should a member fail to adopt a high-speed pursuit policy, which meets the minimum standards explained, Slate reserves the right to refuse to renew all liability coverages to that member. And in the event Slate elects not to renew a member policy, Slate shall give the member at least 30 days notice of non-renewal.
And that's why it's really important, with Bola being on the board and others that are in her position, this has to be done with the media, with the St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, with you as elected officials.
Right.
And you, Bola, as people sitting on these boards. We're just the strong arm of the law. I mean, if that collective decision's made, then we will do the best we can to mitigate the risk, especially for our officers. But there is nothing safe about any of this. And that's the other side of the coin, though, is when they were breaking into our cars and all over the area, and people are getting hurt and they're getting shot. When does the pendulum switch where you say, hey, between midnight and 6 a.m., we're going for it? I don't know.
about technology, I've seen where they've got mounted on the front of police cars a GPS dart that you can pursue the perpetrator, put this dart on the back of his car that is shot out, and then you're able to, GPS and set up maybe a takedown with other communities.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
They go so fast that they get distance, then they bail out of the car and they run. That has been, St. Anne has that unit. It's not successful at all. The messaging trailer is a good example. So if we deploy that messaging trailer at the entrance to Brentwood Forest, and a car sees the messaging trailer and doesn't want to come into a checkpoint and it does a U-turn, the best crack we've got at that car is to spike it and get their tires down to reduce the speed. But again, that all sounds good, but they don't stop when their tires are down. They run, they keep going. And at some point, that car will come to a rest and they're going to bail out and run, and now you've got violent confrontation potential very strong at the point of contact with the officers. These are all very, those, people want to say, well, we should chase all these cars. If you go out to your constituents and you ask them, do the police chase if you run from them? I would venture to guess 8 or 9 out of 10 will tell you, oh, yeah, the police always chase people, right? They don't understand that we have been, because they're just
they're law-abiding citizens. The bad guys, they know we can't chase them. So, you know, that's all part of our gun laws, our pursuit policies, the fact that there's no bite at the end of the prison sentences, the fact that we're kicking everybody out of the workhouse. These are all contributing factors to what we're dealing with here. And these are all guys running in gangs. I mean, you can get on Facebook and see it. This who's doing this.
I just also want to say that the policy, just to be clear, does not preclude pursuits in situations such as armed jackings. So if we have those, which isn't necessarily what this is, car clodding, but if we have those extreme cases where things like that happen, our policy does allow us to engage in a pursuit.
Which is unfortunate in this circumstance because the guys that are doing the armed carjackings that Bo was talking about are the same guys. You just happen to be the unlucky victim that's getting in your car to go to Hawaii like we had in Brentwood a few months ago. Okay. And they're breaking into cars. Well, look what we got now. We got an easy victim. So they're all armed, heavily armed. They outgun the police. But to Bola's point, what she's saying is there are circumstances where we will authorize a chase. But again, if these guys reach the level of threat or use of threat of deadly force just by their presence, which there's a very, very strong argument for that, that's where your decision comes in as to whether or not you change the policy.
Questions? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question, without going into tactics or strategy, the license plate reading software, if the vehicle is stolen and the plate is reported as stolen, you get a hit. But if it hasn't been reported yet, we wouldn't get a hit on that vehicle. Is that right?
That is correct. The car that was in Ronnie in my neighborhood Saturday night was almost assuredly a car taken in a carjacking, and they left the plates on that car. Had that come through license plate reading software in my neighborhood Saturday night, the Eureka PD would have known immediately that they have a car in the neighborhood. That's the value of that LPR.
Okay.
I think I told you guys at the last meeting that these kids know LPR. They know our tactics, right? They know what's out there. So oftentimes, if they can, they will switch the plates. And in that scenario, what we'll see is either nothing or maybe a stolen license plate will come through the LPR, which at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's part of the training that we're doing with our officers. You get a car that comes through with stolen license plates, go pay attention to them.
Yeah.
So that's the only advantage we have here because this is a midnight to daybreak crime rash. So we are lucky in that respect because we can, you know, yeah, we deal with retail crime all day long here in Brentwood and shoplifting and all these other issues. We got enough people to handle that piece during the day, but at night, this is the true issue and potential for danger to all of us that work here and live here. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Yes, sir. Chief Curtin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the department update, excuse me, department report that was posted last week, pretty normal report. Point out we were balanced a little bit more closely on our gives versus receives on mutual aid, but that was an anomaly. It normally is skewed all the time against us. So unless there's any questions on that report from last week, I'm going to move on. Wanted to update you all on an interesting call we had last week on the 18th. We had a report of a person that fell off of Manchester Road at Bompart. And upon further investigation, we found out an MSD contractor fell about 10 or so feet into a creek off of a roadway on Bompart. It was a technical rescue. We had some minor injuries on the patient, but the terrain was such that she couldn't get out on her own power. So we rigged up a rope system and a hauling system and were able to extricate her from the creek with the help of Maplewood Fire Department. So I'm going to send some photos around that I brought for you all tonight just to see that. I want to let you know how successful the Recreation Center foam party ended up being Saturday night. Chief Cottrell and Molly Kukuru from the Rec Center put together a really fun, unique event. It wasn't the first time this ever happened nationally. There was an event that they sort of modeled out of, I believe it was in Idaho? Utah, excuse me. So I want to give them kudos. Alderman Lockmiller and his family were there, and I think the kids absolutely had a blast.
I wasn't in the phone though.
What do you guess, Ronnie? Yeah, I mean, and it was sustained for 4 hours. So it was
That's
a very,
terrific.
very fun event. So we'll see if that ends up coming back for the future. But, all right, and then I wanted to let you know that we have a hiring process, our hiring list process underway. We tested 20 candidates on July 12th and July 16th. They are scheduled, half of them are scheduled for, all of them are scheduled for an interview next week for the first round of interviews. And then the first full week in August, we'll have the second round of interviews and finalize a list. Currently, we have no openings, but we have 2 employees who have requested a disability pension. So if that ends up being awarded to them, then we will have some openings and we will have a list ready to pull some candidates in as quickly as possible off of that list. So both of our folks that have requested the pension are no longer on duty. That is correct. So, and I can't get into specifics, but we'll see how that goes. I think we'll know more on that within the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. So that completes my department update.
Any questions? Thank you, Chief.
Sure thing.
The next item we have is the minutes from June 26, 2019. Everybody's had a chance to look at those. Are there any redactions or changes? Seeing none, hearing none, those minutes will stand as submitted. Under new business, we have a bid recommendation for EMS Billing service. Chief, do you want to?
That would be me.
All right.
Thank you, sir. So we have up for renewal is our EMS billing service contract. We have currently been using a firm by the name of Emergency Management and Consultants, or more affectionately known as EMSMC. They were brought into Brentwood effectively, I think it was January 1st, 2014. We started with them. We exhausted our initial 3-year contract and have exhausted 2 one-year extensions. So we went out for bid recently back in April, and we received 6 bids. There should be a bid opening matrix included in your packet. Our recommendation to the committee and to the city for approval would be for EMSMC to be awarded the contract again. We received some good bids, but we believe firmly that EMSMC has done a tremendous job for us in the city. They're very good to work with. They represent us well. They provide us our EMS patient care reporting system as part of their fee structure. And they rated very highly on our scoring. So what I was hoping for tonight was a recommendation from this committee to move it on to the full board for final approval.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief with regard to this piece? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve a 3-year contract with the option of 2 one-year renewals with Emergency Management and Consultants, better known as EMSMC, and forwarded to the Board of Aldermen for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
And Alderwoman Sims.
Thank you.
Motion passed.
Motion passes. Under new business 9B, there's a firefighter wellness and fitness medical evaluations. This is an extension of a contract that's already been
Yes,
in
sir,
place
it is.
before as well.
We're currently under contract with SSM. It expired, we're not currently under contract. Our contract ran out in May, but we have the option for 2 one-year renewals, and we're asking for the first of those 2 renewals this year. We'll be bringing something back like this again next year as well. The interesting part of this is that we have had tremendous success with this program. It is a program that most of our surrounding communities around us participate in. It has been a safety net of close calls for medical conditions that manifest themselves or don't in most cases. And they are able to shake out a lot of these things through the testing designed specifically for our folks. We've had several incidents where we've had folks taken out of service completely until their condition is more evaluated and ruled out or corrected. And then we've had some that are not taken out of service but do have to follow up. And then ultimately, they report back to SSM to be cleared. So I would very much want to continue this program. It is a tremendous opportunity for our folks. We are adding a couple of new things to this that were not available originally. One is a much more intensive blood screening for cancer. Cancer in the fire service is just starting to really become a major problem with firefighters in this business that we're in with all of the nasty products of combustion in today's modern fires. So that's a big piece of it. The other big piece that we're finding, we're learning a lot about today that we had no idea of, or nobody would even recognize the thought of mental health issues. So that is part of their new program. They have a new piece on mental health screening. They received a federal grant, Ronnie, was it, for the follow-ups to that? So they'll receive an initial evaluation on our dime, and then the grant will cover the follow-up treatment that they need to go back and be reassessed for if they notice something. So I'm very excited about those two new programs, and I hope I can have the support of the committee and the board.
Hey, before I ask for questions, I'll just say I've talked to a couple of the police firefighters, and with regard to this program, and it's a very popular program, it seems to be.
It is. We have full support of our shop on this. This is a win-win for everybody. We can catch something early and try to get it corrected quickly.
Questions?
Hey, Chief, I'm just wanted to go over the numbers real quick.
Sure.
So the SSM is the 13.7, 13.8, and then the blood screening is $350 per employee, right?
So if you look at Exhibit B is our cost for this year's service for 21 employees minus the cancer screening blood work. Okay, so that is a partnership with a vendor and SSM. SSM cannot perform that blood work. It's proprietary, correct, to that vendor. So, but SSM feels that they fit the criteria through the Wellness and Fitness Initiative from the Joint Fire Chiefs Association and the Firefighters Association. So that would be in another $7,300 approximately for a total of $21,135 for the year. We're down 2 guys, so they're not included in this. If we hire 2, those 2 would go through a new hire screening, which is very similar to this, but it'll come out of another line item in our budget. So next year, we should be at full strength at 23 members again.
And then are there certain cancers that firefighters where you're seeing an increase in?
Yes. The most common being the blood cancers, leukemias, testicular cancer, head and neck cancer, brain cancer. So there are definitely some specific cancers. I couldn't tell you the medical terms on them, but that's the general area of concern. Most of this research that they're providing, now nobody's figured out exactly why this is occurring, okay? There's a million different theories. But one of the biggest theories is absorption in the skin. So in the groin area, whether it be a male or female, there's a lot of heat and there's a lot of transfer of products of combustion in the gear that we wear, okay? So same thing with the head, neck, and face. The absorption rates, I want to say, are like 400% around the head, neck, and face area. So our protective hoods that we wear get dirty really fast because they're up high on the body where they're crawling through the burning building, and they just tends to be where a lot of the contaminants settle. And then, of course, when you have absorption rates that high, it's getting in the body quickly. So each of our folks are issued 2 hoods. Every day they have 2 hoods at their beck and call. They go into a fire with a clean hood. They come out. The next call they go on, they're wearing a clean hood, and they're cleaning the ones that got dirty. We also carry on all of our apparatus wipes, like baby wipes, designed for fire service use to primarily decontaminate immediately everywhere that you can get to publicly on a scene, so you gotta kind of be careful about some of that, but the reality of it is, that's another step of prevention. As soon as that gear's been exposed to those contaminants, before they leave the scene, we have decontamination stations set up on scene. So we have soap, scrub brushes, and garden hose type hoses that we rinse everything off, rinse everybody off to get the initial contaminants off. And then when they come back to the station, we are working with Maplewood Fire Department, who has the laundry equipment to launder all of that gear. So it's being worn once in a fire, going out of service till it's cleaned and dried and back in service. And that's one of the reasons we have two sets of gear. We brought that forward a few years ago. So we're trying to do everything in our power to prevent this until they really understand more about what's causing it. There's a lot of different theories about what's going on here, but everybody does agree the products of combustion by today's fires are predominantly based on hydrocarbon products. 30 years ago, 40 years ago was more natural: wood, paper, cotton, wool, those kinds of things. So we're just seeing the results of a different environment.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Chair would entertain a motion to approve, to extend the agreement with SSM Executive Health for 1 year and forward to the full board for final approval at the August 19, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, question on this motion and the one previous. Will this have a first and second reading at that meeting?
That wasn't in the motion necessarily, but
It wasn't, but this will be a resolution.
Okay, all right.
any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller? And Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Item 10A is citizen comments. I don't see anybody in the audience. I will open citizen comments and then quickly close them. Thank you, and I would at this point entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
I would just like to